What up, though? Back with another Woodward Pistons. Of course, I am Steve here, your draft guy, your NCAA basketball dude for Woodward Sports and Woodward Pistons, here to talk about the Pistons and their draft, as always, every week. Please, if you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, give us a like, leave us comments, let us know what you think about the show or what you want to see or be covered in the future. Today, I am going to be talking about possible trades for this number 5 overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft. Spoiler alert, I don't think the team should trade it. And honestly, I think that this is going to be a terrible idea in most, I want to say like 95 to 99% instances. If they trade the pick, I think it would be a bad idea. Now, I have my reasons. I'll lay them out here, but also there are a couple different type of trades that the Pistons could do. They could trade up from the number 5 overall pick. They could trade down from the number 5 overall pick. And then the one that's been reported by Brian Windhorst and a couple other people is potentially the Pistons want to move number 5 for an already established veteran or a player that can come in and help out immediately. Again, I think in most of these instances, the idea behind it is a terrible idea. I think it's too short-sighted, number one. And for the draft stuff, I think it's tough to mess with the talent they already can get at number 5. So let's get into it. Trading up. Let's start with trading up from the number 5 overall pick. If you listen to my podcast, Resball Pod, I had an episode where we went over trade scenarios, and I'm out honestly on trading up from number 5 for a couple different reasons. Number one, trading up means that the Pistons either have to give up one of their young pieces, Ivy, Duren, Cade, or they have to give up future draft picks. I don't think the team is in a position to be doing either of those things. I think most people would agree with that. Also, number two, I do not think that Scoot and Brandon Miller would be worth trading up. That's just my personal opinion. I know other people might think otherwise, but I really don't think that it would serve the Pistons' best interest to, number one, get another guard that pushes Ivy down a down to shooting guard. Had a brain malfunction there. That pushes Cade over to small forward, and oh, by the way, is a worse shooter than both of Cade and Ivy so far. And then, Cade might not be as good of a three-point shooter as we all think. So does Scoot have to pick up slack in that regard as well? And then there's the defensive concerns with Scoot. He just hasn't shown that he's capable of playing good defense right now. And he's a limited defender too. Even if he was a good defender, he is going to be limited to just guarding point guard. So Ivy already has his defensive struggles. Now you're asking him to guard shooting guards only because Scoot has to guard point guards only. He doesn't really have that wingspan or the physicality to make up and guard up the lineup into twos and threes. So that's limited. Pack on the shooting concerns, and then the idea of having 3 primary ball handlers. If you remember Bryce Simon on our channel here, that was the first draft episode we did this season, was just thinking about what the team would look like with Scoot Henderson if they didn't end up with the number 2 overall pick or the number 3 overall pick. And he was saying you rotate them in out of the lineup. Again, that just seems like, I don't know that this is the best course of action for a young team still developing. And to me, too, I think Scoot is good, but I don't think he's like moved the future. Now you have your third guy, you're set for a long period. Because again, what the Pistons are still lacking if you trade up for Scoot is wing defense, and shooting. Those are the 3 things that this team absolutely not only needs in the immediate term, which you can get in free agency, most of those, but also for the long term, developing a guy on the wing that can grow with Cade, Ivy, Duren, and Isaiah Stewart along those. Again, I don't want to trade up for Scoot for that reason. It still doesn't address the Pistons' long-term greatest need, which is on the wing, both in terms of defense and in terms of shooting. Brandon Miller is the other one. I know there are a lot of people that probably want to trade up for Brandon Miller. A couple things in the scouting profile to me that are like, I do not think that Brandon Miller is in this like upper echelon tier that a lot of people are trying to sell him as. If you're one of those people out there that says Kevin Durant in any shape or form when you're talking about Brandon Miller, I'm sorry, I don't see it. There's only one KD. That's just my thoughts on that. But I mean, also on one hand, I get it. The level of shooter he is at 6'8", 6'9", you just don't see too many people block his shot. He took, I believe he took 287 threes this past season, which is a ton of 3-pointers. I don't know that I saw anybody that took more than that. As a freshman, I definitely didn't see anybody that took more than that. Sunk him at like 38%. But again, there are a couple things in the scouting profile. Number one, in the half court, Brandon Miller shot 39% at the rim in half court offense per synergy. That's brutally bad. And that just highlights that he has huge deficiencies when the game slows down and he has to create and get to the rim. Then the other one is against top 50 teams in NCAA. Brandon Miller shot 38.5% from 2-point range. Also, another big concern, when the talent level went up, when the game slowed down, he had a much harder time creating within the 2-point arc, inside the arc, getting to the rim. Again, if you're trading up for a guy, you want those numbers to be much better. You want somebody to be able to efficiently score from everywhere. And again, you're trading up. You're saying, okay, this is the third guy. I think I'll be set for the next couple years. I just cannot see that with Brandon Miller. And the defense, to me, is another thing that knocks Brandon Miller down. He's maybe the worst man-to-man defender in like the second, third tier of this NBA draft. I think he's perfectly fine as a team defender or help defender, but if you're asking him to guard the primary wings of like a LeBron, like a Paul George, like a Chris Middleton, even in the Pistons' own division, I don't see that lateral ability for Brandon Miller to be able to do that. And again, it's less about like, oh, I think he'll be fine, because I'm not going to sit up here either and say Brandon Miller's a bust. My idea of Brandon Miller, when I see him, is like a Peja Stojakovic, somebody on his best night who can be, second scoring option, but most nights is probably like the third best option. Great 3-point shooter. That's always going to translate, but everything else seems to be okay at best. So that's why I'm out. I'm out on trading up, because it's going to cost too much. And again, what do the Pistons have to be able to trade up to number 2 or number 3, which are prime draft positions that you have to give up something for? They probably have to give up Ivy, Duren, Cade, which to me, I'm not. No. That's not what we're going to be able to do, unless somebody like Anthony Edwards is on the table or whatever. Like, there should be no circumstance in which Ivy, Cade, Duren are out there, and especially Cade. Cade should be off limits at this point until like year 4 or 5, when we know exactly what he is, and maybe, God forbid, he'll ask for a trade at that point or something like that. Definitely don't trade any of those guys to move up. And then future draft picks. The Pistons are already out one draft pick. They owe one in the future. It hasn't conveyed yet. You just can't be trading picks like that, in my opinion, as a small market team. Look to the Spurs in this instance. They never trade first round picks, because they understand our bread and butter is through the draft. We know we're not a free agent destination. We know that the only way we can build our team and superstars and build a successful team is to draft well. Even if it is like at the end of round 1, middle of round 1, we have to hold on to our draft picks, because that really is the difference between getting a difference maker and not. We can't be just out there throwing money at people in free agency, because we're not a destination. Ditto for the Pistons. They can't be trading their first round picks. It's just going to shoot themselves in the foot later on down the line. So that's why I'm out on moving up for number 2, because Scoot just opens a whole nother mess of problems, since Ivy and Cade are the primary guys invested for the next 2 or 3 years. And then again, Brandon Miller, I'm just not sold on him being that level to where you have to trade up and be like, okay, you're good. You have another like 18 to 20 point per game scorer who can create his own shot and not have trouble from anywhere on offense, or be somebody that's like this gigantic difference maker on defense. I just don't see it. So I'm out on trading up. Trading down, though, I think this is the areas where it's more of a thing and definitely should be more in consideration. The one I've heard a lot from like Pistons Pulse guys and just random people on Pistons Twitter, and ones that we've lobbied about here in the Table Talk and other places at Woodward Pistons, is trading with Utah. Utah currently holds the number 9 overall pick in this draft and number 16. They also hold 28 in this draft, and I believe a couple second rounders, maybe just one. And I guess that's it. So they hold 9, 16, and 28 in this draft. I've seen a couple people, my guy, Data Driven Piston Fan, who we've gone back and forth with this a lot. He thinks that the talent available at 5 is pretty similar to the talent available at 9. I disagree with that. And again, to me, trading from 5 to 9, I think would be, I don't want to say disastrous, but in my opinion, it puts the Pistons out of range of the players that we can see as like the best fit and also like good value if that is the case. So give you an idea of what I mean by all this. If you look at Tankathon, number 9 is Anthony Black. That means that they just missed out on Taylor Hendricks at number 8. So Tankathons 1 through 8 is Wembanyama, Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, Asar Thompson, Jarris Walker, Taylor Hendricks. And then what's left over at 9 is Anthony Black, Grady Dick, Cason Wallace, Jordan Hawkins, Keontae George, Nick Smith. Again, wing defense. Maybe you believe in Anthony Black like that, but shooting is not a thing that Anthony Black is great at. So you're basically saying, okay, I want to trade down from 5 where there might be a Cam Whitmore there might be Jarris Walker there might be an Asar Thompson there, who have all shown these other things. They've all shown pretty good ability as like at least a catch and shoot guy, which Anthony Black has not. It's just rolling the dice a little bit too much. And again, the idea of like value, you're trading the opportunity to get somebody who you know can fit into part of the rotation at the very minimum with defense or with offense. Athleticism too. Anthony Black is a good athlete, but he's not at the level of Cam Whitmore or Sar or Jarris Walker, in my opinion, as well. And again, the Taylor Hendricks one, that would be the knife in the back, in the gut, ripping out your heart, whatever you want to call it, because that's the target. A lot of Piston fans have been like, you know what, maybe you could trade down to 9 and get Taylor Hendricks. I think it's becoming less and less likely that that will be the case because so many people have fallen in love with Taylor Hendricks, and it's easy to fall in love with a 6'9" guy, 7-foot wingspan who shoots 39.4% from 3 and is a good weak side rim protector. I think that's just too much of a gamble. And again, if you're sitting there and you're left without even Taylor Hendricks at number 9, what do you do at that point? You have to go like what, Grady Dick or Jordan Hawkins or one of these wings that is an absolute legit 3-point shooter, or you really go banana and get like Rain Repair or Bilal Coulibaly, these wings that you're like, okay, I see the defense, like, okay, I see the athleticism. The offense might take a while to come around, but we're going to believe in that and get an extra pick or two in the process. And even then at 16, like, I'm like, okay, I you know me, the draft guy, I'm all about getting more draft picks, but I think it almost doesn't matter at 16. And to give you an idea, Tankathon 16 is Jalen Hood-Schifino, who I quite like, but again, his ultimate position might be point guard, so that might be a bad idea. I wanted to give you an idea too of other drafts and big boards out there too. Again, the no ceilings guys, their big board is a composite of everybody who works for them there, everybody who contributes there. Number 8 is Taylor Hendricks. So again, you just miss out on Taylor Hendricks at 8. And number 9 for them is also Anthony Black. And then underneath that is Keontae George, who I love, but is a bad fit for the Pistons. Jett Howard, Cason Wallace, Kobe Buffkin. Again, it just seems like there's a big difference between, oh, we just whiffed on this 6'9" guy who's a good shot blocker and really good 3-point shooter. And now we're left with guys that are either guards that, again, you run into the scoop problem with less pedigree and less, upside there, or guys like Anthony Black who are like, okay, you could play the wing, but man, he really can't shoot, or like Jett Howard in Jett Howard's case, oh man, he really can't play defense. So you have these severe limitations that it's a gigantic roll of the dice. For my own personal board too, I have Taylor Hendricks right at 9. But I also have to admit, I am in the minority. I have Keontae George at 8. There are not many of us that still have Keontae George in the top 10. So that's another one too. And again, like I said, I feel less and less confident that Taylor Hendricks is still going to be available at 9 because the size, the shooting, the defense, you just do not pass up on these guys. So I think trading down to 9 is a bad idea. And again, I would really, if I was in that room with the team, be like, we can't do this. If we're trading down, I think who's available at 5, like we need to get one of those guys. And if you're going to invest in quote unquote like uncertainty or whatever you want to call it at this point, then the guys at 5, I think, again, fill at least something within the rotation to the very minimum, where you're not dealing with something like a lack of defense with Jett Howard, or you're not dealing with complete non-shooter in Anthony Black right now. And again, the number 5 guys I've talked about so much, Jarris, Cam Whitmore, Asar. I really think the Pistons ought to come away with one of those 3 for all the reasons that we've laid out so far. Cam being a great athlete, improving shooter, one of those guys who will create his own shot and seems to get better and better at that. Asar Thompson, like an Andre Iguodala type player who can pass, who can get up and catch lobs, who has that good defensive pedigree. Might take a while to come around as a shooter, but the shooting improvements have shown to be fantastic over the last 18 months. Go listen to our last episode. I break that down there in detail. And then Jarris Walker, the guy that could be the foundation of the defense, who also has ability to guard over in the small forward, could possibly be somebody that plays into the small forward and be versatile in the lineup the way, say, an OG Anunoby is. And Jam Hines on our 2 episodes ago talked about Jarris being the one guy you can throw in the absolute best offensive players in the league, like LeBron, like a Kawhi Leonard, like a Paul George, like a Chris Middleton, to where he's going to guard these top wings that are out there. Rare defensive ability. I don't think you can just be like, whatever, we'll have the same level of talent at 9. I personally do not think that. And again, please, please, please don't trade down that far. The other one people have talked about, I heard this on the most recent Pistons Pulse, is number 6 and number 11 picks in this draft are both owned by the Orlando Magic. Maybe the Magic fall in love with somebody that's there at 5 that they're like, we have to get him. So we'll give you 6 and 11. I think that for sure should be one that they entertain in one of the more perfect scenarios if it came to pass in this 2023 NBA draft. But again, moving up one spot means like we are desperate. We know you're probably going to pick them, or you have to put some kind of pressure on Orlando to feel like they have to give you something to give up for it. Because if you have any indication that you're not going to take the guy that they want, then why in the world would they trade for it anyway? So we'll see. But that would be, I think, the best scenario is if Orlando falls in love with whoever falls to 5. Say it's like Amen Thompson. Say like there's a wild world where like Scoot falls that far. Then yeah, you take 6 and 11, and you move on. You select one of Jarris, you select one of Asar, you select one of Cam Whitmore, and then you're like, cool, I got one of the guys that I wanted, that I feel real confident in, that can fill in the holes here in Detroit, either in defense or on the wing. And yeah, you move forward and you got the 11th pick, and then you can go roll the dice maybe on somebody like a GG Jackson, or you select somebody like Grady Dick or Jordan Hawkins, somebody in there that you're like, yeah, I understand there's some limitations, but man, they have supreme shooting skills, or they have supreme potential, something to where you just want to roll the dice at 11, and it's money in the bank right there. And beyond that, I don't think there's any other trade down scenarios. Maybe at 7, with the Pacers, but the Pacers have 7, 26, and 29. Again, like, cool, pick up extra draft picks, but who you really expect at 26 and 29, you would pretty much have to know there's going to be some guys there at the end of round 1 you feel really confident in, and then you're like, oh man, I know like the rest of my NBA GMs don't feel that fantastic about them, but I do. So I'll take 7. I'll probably still have one of the 3 guys that I'm targeting there, since it's just moving down 2 spots, and then have these extra picks. But again, 26, 29, the Pistons have pick number 31. Are there 3 dudes that they're really targeting at the end of round 1 and beginning of the second round? Do you have the roster space for all 3 of these dudes as well? I mean, I guess it would translate into 4 guys now, since you would have 7, and then you would have 26, 29, and still keep 31. That's, again, 4 dudes that you're bringing in. I don't know too many teams that have the roster space or the development time to bring in 4 rookies and be like, yeah, we'll figure it out, we got a plan. Seems a lot less likely. And then 31, there been that report recently about Bojan and 31 going to Dallas in exchange for pick number 10 and Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, that's a no-brainer for the Pistons, but that also seems like wild to me. Like, if I were running the Mavs, I wouldn't want to trade my number 10 overall pick in a really solid draft for a guy that's going to turn 34 and is a major defensive liability. And oh, by the way, the only thing that the Mavs really need is defense. So again, it doesn't make too much sense to me, but if that's true, and if that's what the Mavericks want to do, don't stop them from cutting off their own hand to give you a piece of gold. Yes, great. Give me pick number 10. Again, 10 in the mocks so far and like big boards. Grady Dick's number 10 for Tankathon, and Keontae George is number 10 for No Ceilings. And number 10 for me is Gigi Jackson. Again, all guys that I would definitely invest in. At number 10, roll the dice on there and feel pretty good about it, getting the extra pick for, just an early second rounder and a guy that's going to turn 34 next season. And the other one in these trade scenarios, though, is trading for a veteran. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think there's only one scenario where this doesn't blow up in the Pistons' face. I am all about long-term building. I would really have to sit down and think and analyze and find multiple, I'm talking 5 to 10 scenarios where a team that was in this top 5 place traded that pick for a veteran who came in and helped them out, and it ended up working out fantastically. I'm sure there's examples of that out there, but man, I just do not feel good about it because I think it's going to be incredibly short-sighted. Number one, who are the names out there that you can trade number 5 for that are a realistic option? I've said on a couple different platforms that, if it were Anthony Edwards type of player, yeah, but that's not realistic, right? The Timberwolves aren't trading Anthony Edwards for number 5 and anything else the Pistons have. I think even if it was like number 5 and Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, they would probably be like, all right, thanks, but no thanks. We still have to pay Rudy. We still got Cat, so we don't need a big man. And Jaden Ivey's significantly less than an Anthony Edwards. No knock to Ivey. It's just, Ant-Man is Ant-Man. And then he was the number 1 overall pick, and now you're trading the number 5 overall pick for him. Seems unlikely to me. Other names that are like realistically out there: OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. Let's start with the Raptors. Both had been in and out of trade rumors this past season. Siakam seems to have been in trade rumors for the past like 2 or 3 seasons. Siakam's 28, OG Anunoby is 25. I think both guys work fine within like the quote unquote timeline and the age range. We see more and more players playing well into like 34. And I think Siakam's game has never been to dominate the ball. He can do that when you're asking him to do the number 1 overall guy, but it's only because he's needed to be the number 1 overall guy these past few seasons that he's really been able to, score a bunch of points the way he has. I think he can still be fine being like a second or third option. Fantastic defender still. More of like a power forward, played more into center as well at times, 6'9", 230. So the fit for Pascal is a little bit more dicey than he's legitimately the power forward for the next 4 or 5 seasons. His 3-point shooting has been kind of blah as of late too. This past season, Pascal Siakam shot 32.4% from 3 on 4 attempts per game. And I mean, the season before that, 34.4. The season before that, 29.7%. He hasn't shot league average from 3 in 3 seasons. So you're bringing in another guy who's a shooting liability. He does a lot of other things well, but again, something I've stressed is like wing defense, which I think Siakam can still do. To be quite honest, he's a defender that defends pretty much from small forward all the way to center. You really want him defending forwards, though. Mostly you don't want him at center as much, just because he's not like the longest dude, and it takes away from his switchability and these other things he can do at the forward spots. But the shooting, like again, Kane and Ivy need space. They need guys that can supplement and help them develop. Even if they become good shooters, like you don't just want them lining up, attacking off the screens to do pull-up threes, or you don't want them just standing around being catch and shoot guys all the time. With how they can create for others, you really want them with the ball in their hands more. So Siakam's like, I don't know, with that shooting, it just seems like it's not that fantastic of an idea. OG Anunoby, though, 16.8 points per game this past season, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.9 steals, 0.7 blocks. Shooting splits were 53.9% from 2-point range, 38.7% from 3 on 5.5 attempts per game, and then 83.8% from the free throw line, 6'7", 232. I mean, this last year, OG Anunoby played shooting guard. He has fantastic defensive versatility. I've talked about that a lot with Jarris Walker, but I mean, you just cannot undersell the way that OG can defend so many different positions. He pretty much can guard shooting guard all the way into power forward. He's played center when they've asked him to do it. It's not ideal, there because it takes away his movement ability. It takes away his ability to have both the physicality and the athleticism to keep up with like the LeBrons and the Kevin Durants of the world. He is that kind of defender. Nobody's stopping those dudes, but OG has the physicality and the athleticism to stay with them and to press them. There are very few human beings on this world who can do both of those things. Shooting too, the shooting with OG Anunoby has just gotten better and better as he's gone along. The past 3 seasons, he's shot over 36% from three. He's taken over 5 attempts per game in the last 3 seasons. And again, he's only 25 years old. So he definitely absolutely fits with the timeline of this team. I don't know if any of y'all out there are that big of a fan of OG Anunoby though, and like just trading number 5 for him. I think to some people, yeah, again, it seems like, okay, maybe we could have gotten somebody like Cam Whitmore, who's this dynamic athlete who could be more of a shot creator. And hey, maybe he has that defensive versatility the way an OG Anunoby does because he has really good athleticism. Same with Asar Thompson. Hey, maybe he gets the 3-point shot because OG didn't come in with a great 3-point shot either. And he works his way up and up. Maybe Asar could be even better than that. And then same with Jarris Walker. Like, oh, Steve, you've been talking about Jarris being OG Anunoby like with some Bam Adebayo passing, which again, OG doesn't have that passing chops that Jarris does. So maybe he's not worth the number 5 overall pick as well. I think what's more difficult sell in this is both Siakam and OG are unrestricted free agents at the end of this 2024 season. So 2023, 2024, their contract is up next summer. You would have to 100% get a conversation with these dudes if you're trading for them to be like, you are signing a long-term extension if you come here, and we're trading this valuable asset that could return these dudes that have equal potential. You have to have a long-term extension with a Siakam, with an OG Anunoby, because otherwise you risk losing them for nothing. So trading the number 5 overall pick for these dudes who defensively or lineup versatility wise work great, but if they're gone in a year, what was the point of trading that? Again, you're trading 1 year of these dudes for 4 years of or more of whoever you would draft at number 5. I don't see it. And even then, like Siakam 28, how many years can you reasonably say he has left to be a really good, even like 3rd or 4th dude starter on a team? 4 or 5, right? So you're saying, okay, I want 4 or 5 years as opposed to 4 to 9 years, somewhere in there that I could have with this rookie to grow with. Because the first 4 years of the rookie deal, you have the restricted free agent, you can control that and you can re-sign him for even up to like 5 years if he is that good. So again, 4 to 9 years for that rookie. You're trading that 4 to 9 years, therefore a rookie, if they work out, versus the 4 to 5 years of Siakam being like your 3rd or 4th starter. I don't think that's good long-term investment. And then OG Anunoby, I think he's the one that like you definitely would have to sign to a long-term extension to be like, hey, I'm trading for you. You have to sign like 4 or 5 years because 25, he can grow with the team. He's not that old that in 4 or 5 years he's going to flame out. He could definitely be a long-term starter, but again, is he going to be 3rd or 4th guy? Probably. Is that worth the number 5 overall pick? I don't know. I really like OG Anunoby, but at the end of the day, again, I look at Jarris Walker, I look at Asar Thompson, I look at Cam Whitmore, and it's probably just the draft nerd and the draft sicko in me, but I'm like, I would rather get this guy that could be here for longer than that, who could have better potential than that. I would rather go with that than trade for this guy who's, again, 25, fits nicely in the lineup, but how much more of a step does OG Anunoby have? You're looking at a guy that's like, again, 3rd or 4th starter. If you're picking in the top 5 consistently for 3 years, you need to be rolling the dice on the guy that has the best potential. And unfortunately, that's not OG Anunoby, in my opinion. And the other one is Jalen Brown. I've heard Jalen Brown floated out there. I'm with Laz Jackson out there. I saw his tweet of like, I like Jalen Brown, but I don't like him at the numbers that he's going to command with the Supermax deal. I mean, we're talking like 50 million per season. That is banana. You're just killing your cap space at that point. I mean, 50 million for Jalen Brown. You got Cade coming up on an extension next offseason. He's going to command a max as long as he works out. And then Ivy will be a year later along with Jalen Duren. And oh, by the way, Beef Stew's extension will be next offseason. Not that it's going to be gigantic, but now again, you have Jalen Brown, who you would have to trade to be like, we're going to pay you what we want to pay you. You don't want to just trade for him and then he's gone. Then you have Cade, then you have Ivy, then you have Duren, Beef Stew. That's 5 dudes in there, and probably 3 of them will just throw Ivy in there and say he's going to get a max as a rookie. I mean, where's the rest of your cap space to fill out a roster as a small market team again? So within the span of like a year or two, you have 3 guys penciled in as a max, and one of them commands the super max. I just don't think it's that great of an idea. Look back at the Russell Westbrook, Oklahoma City teams. I mean, look at Bradley Beal and the Wizards right now. It's really severely limited what they've been able to do. Even Oklahoma City, who's a fantastic run organization, they got Paul George. They tried to get Melo, but then when that didn't work out, they were really hamstrung. They couldn't get a third guy in there. They couldn't really fill out a roster that made sense to help with playoff success. And then Wizards are the exact opposite of a poorly run organization. They make a splash trade for Porzingis. They get Kuzma and the Lakers' dumb deal and in KCP for a while, and then they stupidly trade him off as well to help Denver win a title. It's just so hard when you're not LA, when you're not New York, when you're not Miami, these prime destinations. Dudes ain't just going to come there. You got to be able to be smarter with your cap and not put all your eggs into 1 or 2 guys and then leave the rest of your cap to be like, well, because we'll just sign veteran minimum guys. And this stuff's going to be more hard to navigate going forward too with the way the new CBA is, because you can't, if you're over the cap now, over the tax and stuff, there's going to be more penalties of like, hey, you don't have a mid-level exception. You can only sign veteran minimum guys. The higher up you go in the payroll, the less you're going to be able to do, because the league is trying to crack down on these super rich teams that are just like, forget it. I'll pay the tax and we'll do all these other things. Guess what? They're still not going to care. And who it's going to hurt more are the small market teams like the Pistons, who just can't get into that financial battle right now. And when the restrictions are more tight going forward, they're really not going to be able to get into that. So no to Jalen Brown. Please, please, please don't do it. And then the Atlanta Hawks are another one I considered. Like, they have a couple dudes there that maybe could fit. I mean, John Collins has been talked about for a while, but I don't think he's worth the number 5 overall pick. Again, he's limited to power forward center. This team doesn't need another power forward center. Collins' 3-point shooting fell off a cliff last year as well, 29.2%, as did his points per game, 13.1. I don't think he's worth the number 5 overall pick because, again, the Pistons need shooting. They need wing defense. Collins provides neither. The other one to consider from them is DeAndre Hunter. I like DeAndre Hunter, but he's not worth the number 5 overall pick either. He's like a lesser version of OG Anunoby. 6'7", 220, I believe, is what DeAndre Hunter is listed at. 6'8", 225 is what DeAndre Hunter is listed at now. He's, like I said, lesser version of OG Anunoby. Doesn't quite have the same lateral ability and versatility that OG Anunoby has. Okay shooter, shot 35% from 3 this past season. Also a health concern. He's been kind of like in and out of the lineup every year that he's played. He's never played a full 82 game season. 62 games his first year, 23 his second, 53 his third year, and then last year just 67 games. That's pretty much what the 3-point shooting in that, I think, are what I would say no, don't trade 5 for somebody like DeAndre Hunter. 35.6% career 3-point shooter for 4 years, and then again, never able to play all 82 games. No thank you to a DeAndre Hunter type trade. There's only one, in my opinion, one player that if the Pistons were like, hey, we're going to trade the number 5 overall pick for a veteran who we know fits what this team needs and can grow with them, there's only one guy, and that's Jaden McDaniels of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Listed at 6'9", 185, Jaden McDaniels is just 22 years old, so he fits right in with the age range of the dudes that are here. And the Pistons is already one of the best perimeter defenders on the wing in the league. Stupidly was left off the all defensive teams. I mean, there are a lot of people that have called out the voters because of that. And at that size, 6'9", 185, great wingspan. great length, great height to be able to guard the best wings in the league. The production might like underwhelm you a little bit. 12.1 points per game, 3.9 rebounds, 1.9 assists, 0.9 steals, and then 1 block per game. Shooting splits, however, he's 58.8% from 2-point range. He does not miss very much within the 2-point arc. 39.8% from three on 3.4 attempts per game, and then 73.6% from that free throw line. The big thing to me, along with the defense, are if you look at Jaden McDaniel's shot chart, he is 47.1% from the left corner. He is 35.6% from the right corner. Three, he's 46.7% from the right wing and 34% from the left wing. Really, the only place in the 3-point arc where he's a bad shooter is from the top of the key, where he's 30.4%. But he only took 23 of those, and that's the least amount of attempts he took from three. He's mainly a corner 3-point shooter and mainly from the wings. So in the corners, he's taken at least 70 shots from both corners. And then from the wings, he's taken at least 45 shots from either side of those wings. That's the exact kind of guy you need when you have a Cade Cunningham, when you have a Jaden Ivey, when you have a Jalen Duren, and even with Beef Stew, like trying to extend his 3-point shot. Here's a dude that is not going to waste them when he's out there. And you probably want Cade Ivey taking those top of the key ones anyway, where normally the primary ball handler, like, will get a screen there and be able to take it off there. And Ivey's doing a lot more off-ball stuff, really gotten better at being a catch-and-shoot guy. So Jaden McDaniels, I think, would be the one guy because, again, he's young. He is a better shooter than what a lot of people think, and he's an improving shooter. He really hasn't shot above 31%, I believe, before this season. But he shot 36.4% from three. Jaden McDaniels did in his first year in the league. 31.7% last year, took a dip. And then this year went back up to 39.8%. And career highs in points per game this season. Really, he was able to step up and do a lot more on both sides of the ball. Again, what I said, the team needs wing defense. They need shooting. Bam, here's a 22-year-old dude that absolutely needs it. And if you're wondering, like, would Minnesota really give up this guy if he really is like one of the top wing defenders in the league? My thought on that is that both Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards, and Jaden McDaniels are up for contract extensions at the exact same time. Their rookie deals end next offseason. That puts Minnesota in a gigantic financial pickle. They're already paying Rudy max money or near max money, whatever it is. They're also paying Cat max money. You know they're going to have to pay Anthony Edwards max money. That means that Jaden McDaniels has to take some kind of a pay cut or has to take a lesser contract than a max deal. And if I were somebody like the Pistons who identify a Jaden McDaniels as the exact guy I need, I would be doing everything that I could within the parameters of the CBA and tampering rules and whatever to be like, dude, we'll give you a max contract. Because again, it's just going to put pressure on his team to where they're like, we can't pay him. And what I just laid out with the new CBA of, teams that go over the cap or into the luxury, they're going to have a tougher time filling out their roster. Does Minnesota really want to be paying their three main guys and then another dude they see as maybe like a role player? How are they going to fill out the rest of their roster? And again, it puts the onus on them. So maybe now the Pistons are like, we don't want to get into that struggle. And we see Jaden McDaniels filling a role and having as much potential as Asar, Jace Jarris, or Cam Whitmore here. Bam, let's just trade number 5 for him. I think that's the only one really to me that makes a ton of sense. And if you don't like it, that's fine. Again, I'm more of the mindset here and the title again of this being like, please don't trade the number 5 overall pick, because I really believe in the potential of a Jarris Walker, of a Cam Whitmore, and an Asar Thompson, who will most likely all be there at number 5 for the Detroit Pistons. So thanks again for tuning in to Woodward Pistons. If there's another trade you're considering, let us know in the comments what it is. Let us know what you think of my trades and of my idea that please, please, please don't trade the number 5 overall pick, because for the most part, I think that the talent and the long-term potential of the guys available at number 5 is going to far outweigh a lot of these trade down, trade up, or trade for veteran scenarios that could be out there for the Pistons. So thanks again, and we will catch you next time. Sorry Joe didn't get off the phone this time. I don't know where he's calling this week, but he doesn't seem too happy about it.